All art, including fiction, is always created within the framework of a certain conception of the organization of the life of society. That is, Dostoevsky, all his work is a product of historically real orthodoxy and Tsarism. He writes about the problems that are generated precisely by this very way of life on the basis of orthodoxy, Tsarism. These problems are insoluble in this way of life because they are reproduced and generated by them. As soon as you understand this matter, that's it. Dostoevsky is not interesting, it's worthless. Because the transition to system-forming principles that do not generate these problems, it automatically removes all these problems.
By the way, about Dostoevsky, if I'm not mistaken, in Foreign Stalin, How to Live in Humanness, there are a few chapters devoted to art, both artistic and literary, and there is criticism of his work, Demons. If I'm not mistaken, that's where the idea was expressed. The thought that... But no, I was mistaken. This is not Ford and Stalin. But in the work Master and Margarita, Hymn to Demonism, or Gospel of Selfless Faith. So there is a mention in particular of Dostoevsky. There it is said that it is like a kind of machine that uses the energy of the reader. That is, it comes to life when the reader comes into contact with it. I did not quite understand.
No, it was about something else. There it was said that if we enter the plot of a work of art, then if it is really high art, then all the characters are some kind of sub-personalities of the author of the work. They live their own lives. That is why we perceive Bezukhov, Prince Volkonsky, Natasha, all other characters of War and Peace as living people. But if we talk about the characters of demons, then these are puppets that need to be pulled in order for them to do something. They don't live their own lives.
I haven't read it. Apparently, you have to read to feel it.
They do not live their own lives. They are set in motion by the author, who manipulates and moves them.
But this concerns precisely demons, right?
Well, concretely demons.
Or is it characteristic of...
No, this concretely concerns demons. Because if, for example, we talk about crime and punishment, there are more or less living people, but they are psychologically defective by strength of the fact that they grew up in a defective culture.
Mikhail Viktorovich, I have a question about the global predictor. So, in one of the latest releases of intelligence data, Budkov expressed the idea that global power does not take sides. There is only a certain curator who controls in order that we do not collapse, do not destroy ourselves at all, and also the whole planet, because they have nowhere to go from here. The second point was this. There were representatives of global power who tried to give people knowledge, tried to somehow change the state of society. But they didn't succeed, because people for one reason or another did not accept it. After all, the global predictor always, in the entire historical process, what position does he take? I am interested in your opinion. To what point does it strive to bring society?
К чему он стремится привести состояние общества, какой точке, к какому?
Open the Quran. Everything is determined by the position of Iblis.
So this is Iblis.
This is the local periphery of Iblis. This is the periphery. The periphery is very often unaware of this. An example of what it is not aware of is the legend of the Grand Inquisitor in the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. After all, look at the Inquisitor from the side. That is, we as if like aliens look at a certain planet where there is a Grand Inquisitor and that which Dostoevsky describes there. And what will you see? And you will see a tragedy. Because the Inquisitor complains to Christ about what? So, when Satan tempted you and suggested that you turn the stones into bread, you sent him away, and they need bread. They don't want anything else, and so we are forced to rule the way we rule. Because if they are left to themselves, they will kill each other, and so on. But the Grand Inquisitor sees no way out of this trap, because he is trying to replace God's providence with his self-concoction and non-faith towards God, because the question is not in faith in God, but the question is in faith towards God as a subject. The question is in dialogue with him. That is, if this problem exists, then it can somehow be solved. In order to solve it, one must live in dialogue with God. How is it solved? In order to solve it, we must learn to think in processes. And we think in states, in the I want or I feel like mode. So I want this and that, and this is thought of as a certain unchanging quality and not as a process. We strive to go to the mode of beautiful moment, do not pass away. In Faust, this theme is considered. It is Satanism. And if you think in processes, then questions arise. How do we conceive children? How does the soul of a child come into this world? Why is childhood given? How does society realize this childhood? In general, very long processes are obtained, which, yes, really lead to a way out of the trap in which the Grand Inquisitor found himself. But these processes cover the lifetime of several generations. And another paradox is that the Grand Inquisitor, in principle, has the authority to implement all of this. But he lacks the knowledge on how to implement it. For all his blago-intentionness, well, given that he does not believe God, he does not believe the messenger of the Almighty. He perceives the world as static and unchanging. People are like that, this is their nature, this is not their nature. The starting conditions for us are indeed the biological species of Homo sapiens, In some classifications, it refers to a special kingdom, represented by one biological species. But if this question of a special kingdom is removed, then this is a variety of primates, nothing more than a herd-pack monkey. On this fundamental basis of the herd-pack monkey, there is a potential for personal development. There is a potential for social development. Social development is always the result of personal development and personal creativity, and not vice versa. Well, while the Grand Inquisitor, having authority, in general coping with certain governorial tasks, in the mode any kind of governance is better than a war of all against all, he turns out to be incapable of solving this task of development.
Well, this is the periphery, and global power, global predictor.
Well, in general, Dostoevsky's Inquisitor is a metaphorical image of precisely this very global power. Because if we talk about this character as a personification, then he possesses the highest intrasocial powers that there are. He is not responsible to anyone, that is, fears do not move him, do not restrain him. But he is limited. In creativity, he is limited by his raviousness and his atheism, his non-faith towards God. And this is what really is. Then there are questions about what they try to give. Well, someone really tries to give. What is the reaction of society usually like? As Stalin wrote in his youth, "We need not your foreigners' songs, we need not the truth of a dreamer."